What's going on, everybody? Smitty from around the 412 here. We're going to be going through, and before free agency starts, I just wanted to get out another 4-round mock draft just to see how much things have changed recently based off combine results. We've done, post Senior Bowl mock drafts. However, the combine could have changed things here. So we'll take a look now how we feel about the Steelers. Obviously, with some rumors floating around, stuff that I've heard, that's all going to play into this. And also, though, keep in mind, I am at the mercy of the computer. So I can't necessarily control my own destiny for who is going to be available with each pick, as the Steelers will not be able to control their own destiny with who is available at each pick. But without further ado, we can kind of get into things, see where they stand as of today. Free agency going to be kicking off maybe by the time that you are watching this video. So be sure to subscribe to the channel. Leave us a like, hit that notification bell so you don't miss a single piece of content that we're putting out here. And appreciate you guys for everything. But in this moment in time, just tuning into this one video. So do all that for me, and let's dive into this. Steelers, 4 rounds. Let's draft. It'll be interesting, but nope, I already disagree. What are we doing? Okay, Anthony Richardson. I agree with that pick. Good. And I'm glad that like Jalen Carter didn't slide all the way to us and I have to be the one to make that decision just because first off, I don't think that's going to happen. Second off, would the Steelers be the team to stop that slide? I don't know. Okay, so I want to talk about each one of these picks too, just because of like things that I'm hearing again, right? Like, so if you want to believe me, don't want to believe me, I get it. Who am I? Just some guy. Take it with a grain of salt if you want to. But I am going to go based off what I hear because I trust what I hear and what I believe. And I don't think I'm also actually glad that Joey Porter Jr. went already because I didn't want to have to be the one to do this, but I wouldn't have taken him, even if he was on the board, just because I'm trying to be predictive here with what the Steelers would do. Everybody thinks that the Steelers love Joey Porter Jr., and I get it. Position of need, really good player, ties to the Steelers, the bloodlines. It all makes sense on paper, but the Steelers love their ball production from their corners. If there's one thing about Joey Porter's game that he does not have, he cleaned up the grabbiness in 2022. Just one penalty, and it came in the first half of the first game. The ball production isn't there. Maybe, those pass deflections turn into turnovers at the next level. Very possible. Maybe that's being, overthought by who I'm hearing this from, but not high in the Steelers board from what I hear. So, also what I hear, the pick will be on defense, though. I think that Mike Tomlin likes his tackles a lot more than people think. If they were to address this offensive line early, I think it's the interior, and I don't think that's happening at pick 17. Are you going to go and get like Osiris Torrance at 17? Should we not roll out the Steelers trading back though? Under Kevin Colbert, never. Under the Omar Khan regime, he kind of was openly talking about the willingness to do so. Now, actions speak louder than words. Are they really going to do so? But maybe leave that on the table now that it's a new regime. To me, though, feeling like I have a good idea that it's going to be on the defensive side of the football and not Joey Porter Jr., Brian Brzee definitely in play, in my opinion. I think that, he's got questions to answer, physically where he's at. Down production in 2 back-to-back years, but for very different reasons. Obviously, you had the ACL tear in 2021, only played 4 games. In 2022, different stuff, dealing with the loss of his sister. Just horrible, can't even imagine, but emotional time, obviously, for him. And production was down again. Also, that knee probably wasn't 100%, so that was certainly playing into things, too. Brian Brzee would be on the board. I think the linebackers got to be on board. Trenton Simpson in play. A lot of talk about Drew Sanders, too, who can do a lot of different things. Those would probably be the only 2, in my opinion, that would be in play there. Lucas Van Ness, who can rush from the inside or outside. They need to just get better on that defensive line and younger on that defensive line. And even though Joey Porter's not, a corner could be in play. A lot of talk about Deonte Banks, Emmanuel Forbes, the height and weight not necessarily there, but the ball production certainly is. Keely Ringo, the height, weight, speed, who had obviously a down year. Going into 2022, A lot of people thought probably top 10 pick in Keely Ringo. Clark Phillips, this is probably a little bit high for him. And I think people would probably say the same about Forbes or Banks, even though I wouldn't necessarily agree with that. But I think based off the way that the board fell for us, like Cam Smith would have made a ton of sense to me here too. I think they'd love for a guy like Devin Witherspoon to fall to this spot. But because that didn't happen, we're going to get younger and better on the defensive line and go Brian Brzee. Again, I feel like this pick's certainly going to be on defense. I think they look, corner potentially at 32, assuming that they stick there. Because again, there might actually be some movement on the board with Omar Khan now in charge and not Kevin Colbert. But I think that's kind of the sweet spot. Really good corner class. I think you're going to get guys, later, even in day 2, maybe in day 3, that can be starting guys like, I would be willing to take a shot on Keely Ringo, but I really like Clark Phillips, Emmanuel Forbes, Deontay Banks, Tyreek Stevenson's a great athlete. Kyle Blue Kelly is a Senior Bowl standout. I love Julius Brents. No way they have him as the 9th best player on this particular site. No way. I don't see that whatsoever. If you're looking for strictly a slot guy, Travius Hodges-Tomlinson could make sense. Do you take a swing on Garrett Williams? Again, now I'm just talking about the cornerback class, but I really like the cornerback class. There's guys to be had all throughout. So I think get better on the defensive line here. And finally, like a younger piece, like DeMarvin Leal's kind of that tweener, which you really don't know what to do with. Is he strictly going to be a guy that they rush off the edge? Or they're going to ask him to beef up? I don't know. I still like the player. I just think you're kind of in a spot with him where you don't really know what he is yet. And so it's hard for me to say like he is a true anything. Man, look at this. Lucas Van Ness fell all the way to here. Of course, we got to look and see what's there at corner. Forbes and Deontay Banks both on the board. Deontay Banks is almost like a light version of Joey Porter Jr. I think they do a lot of the same things. And there's a lot of similarities in their game. Emmanuel Forbes, I'm very tempted. I know people are going to talk about the size. Excuse me. But the ball production is just through the roof. Always has a nose for it. I think he plays bigger than what his height and weight is. You got to keep the linebackers in mind too, because none of them went in round 1. Oh, man. And even though I feel like, 17 isn't going to be on offense, 32 could be. Josh Downs would be great in the slot for this team who needs a true slot receiver. Nobody there really at the interior. Darnell Wright, could he make sense? Sure. I think that this is probably about the range where he's going to go. He could go earlier than this. There's a lot of talk about him in round 1. But again, with what I believe and what I'm hearing, I don't think they take a tackle this early just because I think that they roll with Chukwueze Okorafor and Dan Moore Jr. as the tackles in 2023. So I'm sticking with defense. I'm going to corner. And it becomes a conversation between these two. Now, if they do not like Joey Porter Jr. as much as people are saying, would they be willing to take, a diet? That's a slight Deontay Banks. He's not. He's a great athlete. He's the best version of Deontay Banks. He doesn't need to be a different version of Joey Porter Jr. I don't want to slight him. Do they take that at 32, or would they be willing to covet that type of player at 32? Or are they looking strictly for, the ball production, even if it comes in the form of a guy that doesn't possess the ideal height and weight for the position? They've had undersized guys in the past. And I think if you look at that corner room now, hopefully you got Cam Sutton back. There's a lot of smoke surrounding that. Free agency is fast approaching, though. Can they get something done before he hits the open market? You got Levi Wallace still. I don't know what they're going to do with Akella Witherspoon. Could save $4 million by cutting him. Where is he at on the depth chart after, the injuries last season? Wasn't good when he was really on the field. You still got James Pierre in tow, assuming that, he's a restricted free agent, but I think he'll be back. And you still got Arthur Millette. I think they draft one around this range. This makes a ton of sense for it to be at this spot. And I'm going to say they covered the ball production. I'm going Emmanuel Forbes. Again, you could talk me into him. Deontay Banks were one of those linebackers. But I think that's where it's going to be. John Michael Schmitz just went too. Wouldn't mind that whatsoever. Even if it's to play guard as opposed to center and you keep Mason Cole at center, Wouldn't have an issue there. Oh man, really? Ron Dexter is going to be coming in for a top 30 visit, by the way, too. That was already put out there. So we know the interest is for sure there with him. But, adding Brian Brzee already, we're not going to go that route. This is where you could see an offensive line pick. Cody Mauch could make a ton of sense. I'm basically between Drew Sanders or Cody Mauch, I think, right now, unless I'm missing somebody here. I mean, Steve Avila is a really good player, too. I think he's much closer to this spot that we're picking at than where they have him listed at 82. Joe Tippmann, Luke Whippler, both those guys, in my opinion, are, plug and play day one starters. Whether that's at center or guard, I think that should depend on landing spot. Could definitely talk me into Keon White or Ade Adebaware too. Two really good players. I understand you have your two edge guys right now in TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith. Alex Highsmith needs a new contract. And also you need, 3+ pass rushers in today's NFL anyway. You rotate guys in and out, keep them fresh. TJ obviously, dealt with the injuries and stuff last year. Not the cleanest bill of health in recent years. So would make a ton of sense. I think it's hard to be so predictive with this just because, in my opinion, they're going to add a linebacker in free agency. Like, it's such a good free agent class at that position. That is, to me, where they would spend. For that reason, I will go with an offensive lineman here who can play inside or outside, can play guard or tackle, and I'll go Cody Mauch. I really don't know how much the team loves him, to be quite honest with you. But he was really good at the Senior Bowl. And I think that the fact that he can play guard or tackle is the reason that I'm willing to take this pick now. Drew Sanders, certainly, like I said, he's in play. He would have been in play at 32, obviously in play at 49 as well. But I'm forecasting here as well what I think is going to play out, and I think the Steelers add an inside linebacker early in free agency, and that would totally change the way that I were to do this in like another few days if I were doing this exercise then. So we go Cody Mauch here, and hopefully the Steelers get a linebacker in free agency, because if not, I just really messed that up. Why is Dalton Kincaid still on the board? There we go. Thank you, Tampa. Get out of here, Baltimore. What do you think you're doing? Man, Blake Freeland, great value here. No way is he even available at this pick, in my opinion, the way that he tested. One of the real big winners of the combine, in my opinion. Julius Brents, too, such a good player. We already took a corner. I don't think they would double dip there. DJ Turner, fantastic athlete at Michigan. Ade Adebawari's there. So just, to recap what we took so far here, we got Brian Brzee, get younger and better on that defensive line. Emmanuel Forbes, the ball production at the cornerback position, with or without Cam Sutton. I think this is a pick that makes sense. I think this is where they would target a corner. And then 49 kind of became a predictive pick, assuming, very much hoping that they address inside linebacker in free agency. So, man, I think wide receiver, this is where wide receivers got to start being in play. A lot of talk about A.T. Perry, who, played in the ACC the time as Kenny Pickett. He talked about the opportunity, like he would love to play with Kenny Pickett again at the pro level. He's a Shrine Bowl guy. Don't know how much people know about him, but productive player at Wake Forest, 6'5", 206. The RAS was really good. Um, really good, long stride, open field speed. I think he's in play. I'm really struggling with what direction to go with this. I'm happy with what we've addressed so far for sure. Assuming again that we get a linebacker in free agency. If we didn't, then Day and Henley's probably the guy I'd be coveting here. Overshown didn't have a good combine, and I think he's one of the guys that really needed to. Like, not everybody does, depending on what they show on tape, but like he needs to be a really good athlete to be anything really at the NFL level. He didn't test well. Dorian Williams is another guy I think too. The Steelers would like, maybe a little bit of a reach here. You know what we're gonna do? We're gonna go with A.T. Perry. 6'5", really good athlete. I think he could play inside or outside. It'd be interesting to see how they use him because I think all three now of your top receivers in Deontay Johnson, George Pickens, and him are better suited about playing outside. I wouldn't even consider moving Deontay inside just because he's the best separator. I think you got to keep him where he's at on the outside and let him continue to win in that way. So, how are you going to get creative? Talk about Matt Canada being creative. So you're not. But some really good pass catchers for whoever the next offensive coordinator is. Okay. Oh, man, I would have loved Will McDonald in one pick. Zach Harrison's a really good player. Such a shame with Andrew Voorhees. He's also very polarizing even before that torn ACL. There's people that love him. There's people that hate him. Probably, a top 100 player, though. I'm between Zach Harrison, getting another player on the edge here again, or Day and Henley, who I think the Steelers really like. Is the other corner I mentioned still on the board, too? Yeah, Dorian Williams is still on the board. So Henley, Williams, or Zach Harrison out of Ohio State. They need another answer at linebacker. Like, even if they bring one in free agency, Miles Jack is only here for next season. And, Mark Robinson's still got a long ways to go, in my opinion. I like him, but he's only played 2 years of linebacker. I think he's very raw. I'm excited about his opportunity to work with Aaron Curry just because of what Aaron Curry was part of developing in Seattle. But yeah, let's give him another piece. I'm going to go Dan Henley here, who tested really well. I think the Steelers showed a ton of interest at the combine. Really good player at Washington State, good size at the position, really good athlete. And you got, some type of an investment there into that room just because, again, Miles Jack back for a year. I think they add somebody in this free agency. Is Robert Spillane going to be back? Maybe, but, he's just, in my opinion, just a guy. He's part of the room. He's okay. They really like him for his ability to communicate. He's a steady presence. He can do some things for sure in that defense, but, get a guy that is moldable, get in that room with Aaron Curry and start to develop. I think Henley's a great pick in that spot. So here we go. Brian Brzee, Emmanuel Forbes, Cody Mock, A.T. Perry, and Dan Henley. Again, this is a combination of things that I'm hearing, predicting how I feel like free agency could play out for this team, and some other things. And this is the haul that we walk away with. I feel pretty good about it. I think you got a lot of day one contributors, and then, you got some guys to work with and mold and hopefully are pieces down the line here. So let me know how you feel about the haul, Steelers fans. Let me know what you would have done differently with each pick. I'm sure there's going to be a ton of comments about what you would do differently with the pick, and I appreciate those. I love the conversation as long as we can keep it civil, and appreciate everybody for watching. Be sure to subscribe, hit that like, hit that notification bell, and again, keep the comments coming. I will be responding. We can have very healthy, good dialogue in those comments. But yeah, this was Steelers 4-round mock draft. Let me know how you feel. We'll talk to you next time. Bye bye.